Some actors hate to leave this stage we call life. Lon Chaney Sr. was the silent screen star who appeared in the most popular horror films of his time. After his death in 1930, Lon Chaney Sr. was often seen sitting on a bus bench at the intersection of Hollywood and Vine. Another of the monster movie actors who loved the corner of Hollywood and Vine was Bela Lugosi. He walked to Hollywood and Vine every day when he wasn't working. He died in 1956. He was placed in his coffin wearing the black cape that he wore in the movie Dracula. The coffin was loaded into the hearse. There was a rule in 1956 that no funerals could drive down Hollywood Boulevard. It was just too depressing for the tourists. The hearse drove onto Gower Street, and as it crossed Hollywood Boulevard, the driver felt someone take control of the steering wheel. The hearse turned onto Hollywood Boulevard. The driver tried to stop, but someone was holding his legs, and the gas pedal was being pushed down by itself. The hearse, followed by the entire funeral procession, headed west on Hollywood Boulevard. The driver thought he was going to have an accident, but the hearse proceeded down Hollywood Boulevard, weaving in and out of the traffic, and somehow the traffic lights changed to green at just the right time. After passing Bela Lugosi's favorite intersection of Hollywood and Vine, the control of the car was given back to the driver, who then drove back to his assigned street. Some show business stars seem to have been told in advance they would soon be dying. Hank Williams, the country songwriter and singer, has been seen waiting backstage at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville. He's ready to sing once again on the Grand Ole Opry radio program. Hank doesn't know the show moved to a different building many years ago, because Hank died on New Year's Day of 1953. Hank's last hit record at the time of his death was called "I'll Never Get Out of This World Alive." Chuck Willis was a popular rock and roll singer. He had a two-sided hit on the charts when he died in 1958. One side was called "I'm Gonna Hang Up My Rock and Roll Shoes," and the other side was called "What Am I Living For?" In Clark Gable's last movie, The Misfits, the actor said, "If a man is afraid of dying, he's not really living." On September 30th of 1955, Donald Turnipseed was driving his Ford Coupe near the intersection of California Highway 41 and Route 466, which is now known as Highway 46, near the town of Chalamet. Donald Turnipseed prepared to make a left turn. He saw that the road was clear, and he turned. He got hit by another car, a Porsche. A passenger in the Porsche named Ralph Wutherich was thrown clear. Donald Turnipseed and Ralph Wutherich survived the collision. The driver of the Porsche was killed. His name was James Dean. He was a movie star who would become the first teen idol of the 1950s. 1 week earlier, on September 23rd, 1955, James Dean had met with British actor Alec Guinness. He showed Alec Guinness his brand new Porsche. It had just been delivered. James Dean had not yet driven it. Alec Guinness said, "Please never get in that car. If you get in that car, you'll be found dead in it by this time next week. Alec Guinness had no idea why he said those words. But exactly 1 week to the day later, James Dean was dead. A fan magazine reported in 1956 that some of James Dean's fans gathered at the intersection where he was killed exactly 1 year to the minute after the accident. They all heard the accident repeat, and some of them saw James Dean in a phantom Porsche driving on the highway. He was also seen by some of the people who attended the premiere of Giant at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood in October of 1956, 1 year and 1 month after his death, and they say it was the first time they had seen him looking happy. A doctor named Troy McHenry bought some parts for his Porsche in 1956. The parts came from James Dean's wrecked car. The doctor's car with the parts from James Dean's Porsche crashed in October of 1956, killing Dr. McHenry. The Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel across the street from the Chinese Theater is supposed to be haunted by Montgomery Clift's ghost. He was a famous movie star of the 1940s, the 1950s, and the 1960s. He stayed in room 928. When he was a paying guest, he was working on a movie called From Here to Eternity. Well, maybe just a couple of more stories before we give up the ghost. The Queen Mary ocean liner is now a tourist attraction in Long Beach, California. There was a time when it was the biggest and the fastest luxury liner in the world. It outran submarines during World War II. Submarines that wanted desperately to sink the most important of the world's ships, the Queen Mary. It's haunted, you know. There's the young, beautiful lady in the very old-fashioned bathing suit seen occasionally by the swimming pool. There are the voices in the engine room. And there's the ghost dog. The dog can be heard in different parts of the ship at different times. The puppy dog and his owner traveled on the Queen Mary many years ago. The man had a heart attack and he died on the Queen Mary. When the ship's crew checked the room to see what had happened, the dog ran out, and he's been running about from here to there on the Queen Mary with the other ghosts ever since. Isn't it great to know that a ghost's best friend is his ghost dog? A mother received 2 phone calls in Indianapolis, Indiana in October of 1987. The first call told her that a jet plane had just crashed into the hotel where her son worked as a desk clerk. As she prepared to leave the house to see if her son was injured, she heard the telephone ring again. It was her son's voice. He said, "Mom, I'm okay." Later, she would find out her son had been instantly killed in the plane crash, even though he called her a few minutes later. Charles Lindbergh was the first person to fly solo across the Atlantic in 1927. He had been flying for more than 20 hours, and he had little sleep before that, but he is certain that he was not hallucinating when he saw what he called phantoms in his plane. The phantoms were behind him, but they would take turns coming forward and talking to him. He knows he fell asleep once, and one phantom flew the controls while another phantom shook him awake. When he was in his 27th hour of flight, he saw 2 fishing boats on the ocean surface. Lindbergh had not seen anyone in a long time. As he flew lower and circled the boats, no one appeared to be on board. He buzzed the boats, flying within 50 feet, but no one came on deck. He then saw a head looking out a porthole. The face was staring at him. He flew even closer. The face did not appear to have a body. Lindbergh had a desire to stay and solve the mystery, but the phantoms warned him to gain altitude and resume his course, or he would die. He made it to Paris and became a world-famous aviator. Years later, he spoke about the phantoms and said, "Some secret has been opened to me beyond the ordinary consciousness of man." By the way, Charles Lindbergh's airplane was called the Spirit of St. Louis. My brother was riding in a horse-drawn wagon many years ago. Our cousin handled the reins and was taking my brother back to the house where my aunt lived. It was deep in the hills of Kentucky, surrounded by woods that were filled with centuries-old trees. A winding dirt road was the only way to get a wagon in or out. My brother noticed a ball of light in the woods that was pacing the wagon. There were no people in the woods. It wasn't completely dark yet, so if someone was there, they could be seen. It was just a ball of light. My brother told our cousin, "There's a light out there." But my cousin would not turn to look. He didn't speak. It was as if he had seen the light before and wanted nothing to do with it. As they came to the creek and crossed the bridge, the light stopped. It didn't come across the creek. We always felt that the light didn't want to come too close to my aunt's house because her house was haunted, and it wouldn't be polite for one ghost to intrude on another. Well, my time is up, but there'll be other times. Right now, why don't you join me? I think we're just in time for the special down at the Ghost Cafe.